Well, welcome to the Good Talk Podcast, where we remind you of the joy of life, the love of God, and the possibilities that lie ahead. Pete and Jordyn here with episode 87.
4 childlike traits no adult should lose. I'm excited for this one. Inspired by Pepper, our daughter.
Do you have any guesses on what the 4 traits are?
Curiosity, unbridled joy, unbridled judgment.
Close.
Okay.
I mean, no, that's not it, but close. You got 1 of the 4.
I'm in the same seat as you guys. 99% of the time is like not knowing what you're going to talk about, which I love because like I can respond to it. But at the same time, I'm sometimes totally in the dark. But I like it. It's been freezing. Today is our first like non-cold day. If you're watching on YouTube, you can tell because I am pasty white.
You know how I could tell?
No color.
I could tell that it was a warm day today because you're barefoot.
I am barefoot. You're wearing flip-flops.
I know.
Anyways, but we've had like a 2.5 week of just gross cold rain. You can't go outside. And we had a weird warm snap like at the beginning of February. We had like 70-degree days pretty consistently.
Nice. Yeah.
So we got a really early taste. And then it just made me mad when it went away because even though we totally didn't, that's not a normal temperature at that point. But I guess I just told myself that
it's funny how you get a couple warm days, and then when it goes back to what really probably is average, you're so bitter. You're like, are you kidding me? I thought we were done with this.
I know, it's so dumb. So it's been really cold. We've been trying to get like creative with Pepper because if any of you have ever had a little one, you know, and by the time you get to February, you're like, I have no other ideas of like entertaining. And so we've been trying to get Pepper out of the house in unique ways. We just went to, what was it, maybe 2 weeks ago, we went to something called the Disney Immersive Experience in Nashville.
That was so cool.
It's all over the country. There's like, I don't know how many locations. I want to say there's over 10 of them. If you go to that website or just Google it, Disney Immersive Experience, they're all over. But anyways, you go in and obviously it's a ticketed event, but it's, I think it's an hour long. So you walk in and it's a humongous room with just screens circling you 360 degrees.
The floor's interactive.
So kids are running around, the floor's moving.
There's bubbles coming out of the ceiling.
Anyway,
it's pretty impressive.
It's a bunch of Disney music and it swallows you whole. It's just like you literally feel like you're in it. But yeah, so we did that with Pepper. That was super fun.
And then we had spring break, and we didn't have like spring break this year.
Yeah.
Like we had 0 plans. We didn't have the boys. And but we decided to do a one-night staycation because we had a gift certificate to a local hotel, the Opryland Hotel, that somebody given us like almost a year before.
Which is one of the largest hotels.
I think it's the 3rd largest hotel in the country.
Yeah, it's freaking huge.
It's massive.
It's like I would say one of the biggest attractions of it is like for conventions and conferences.
Yeah.
Like it's huge for that because it's so large. But
we went there one night, which was fun to just like go stay in a hotel. And I've been to that hotel for so many events throughout my entire lifetime. I've never spent the night there.
Me either.
So
and we always go there for Christmas.
So fun.
Yeah, it was great. We just kind of felt like we were not in Nashville, even though we've been there 100 times. But it's great. There's like tons of restaurants and water shows and fountains. And so Pepper just like lived her best life. I think we were there for less than 16 hours. Check-in was like 4:00 in the afternoon and checkout was 9.
Yeah.
So we were gone by 9. We got there at 5 that night before. So it was so quick, but there was something that just like revitalized me.
And it's fun because Pepper's at the stage now where she knows that's different and fun to be in a hotel room. She's looking all around the room and going out on the little balcony. And we did, and this is actually what inspired the concept of this podcast was before bedtime, she was playing on the bed, and I decided to get up on the bed and just start jumping up and down on the bed with her.
I posted that on Instagram.
Okay, so which I've never done at home because you don't jump on your beds at home. You're not supposed to. But a hotel bed, for some reason, you feel like, that's okay. And she just thought that was the most fun thing she's ever done, just to watch me. And she tried jumping a little bit, but just jumping on the bed and just seeing her joy over something so simple, you just forget, like, and I think for me personally, it's one of the incredible benefits of having a toddler. There are complications that go along with it as well. But one of the incredible benefits is it really does transport you back to your childhood because you see life through them. And you forget, like, just how the most simple things can bring them so much joy.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. So it just kind of got me thinking about what are some of the characteristics that kids exhibit? What are some of the traits they exhibit that we really shouldn't lose, but often we do as adults? And, I think one of the great things about being a kid is life seems so simple, right? It's like you have your friends, they're like the most important thing in the world. And, you have a day like a snow day, and it's just a magical day. Whereas an adult, you even have a hard time enjoying it if you get off work because you feel like you're not being productive.
Yeah.
And those were the days. There's a day when an ice cream truck could erase any stress or anxiety you had about life. You got a bad grade. So what? I'm about to get a snow cone off this truck, right? Or you scraped your knee. Who cares? I'm about to eat an ice cream sandwich. Like it didn't take much to just bring you to a place of pure like joy. And you know this about me, but I grew up here in Nashville, and you know that I often go back to the street that I grew up on.
We were there like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I love going back to the neighborhood I grew up in. I'll often, in a really weird way, park my car right in front of the house I grew up in. And sometimes if the weather's good, I get out and I just walk the block. And I can, every house, every yard, I have a memory of some game we played or some stupid stunt we tried, and it like transports me back to being a kid and all those memories and all that fun. And you just, that I think it's a sense of freedom. And I've thought before, man, if you could bottle up that sense of freedom and fun and enthusiasm for the little things, and you could just kind of carry that around in your responsible adult pocket and pull it out, swig on it every once in a while, it would just make life easier. Because I think children are just the most pure and true humans on the planet. And then as we get older, we lose so many of those features that made life innocent and curious and loving. And I hate that we lose that.
I know. We gain a lot of great things. But yeah, you do through experience or baggage or whatever else. Yeah, you do. You lose it. Sometimes out of defense mechanisms, sometimes just out of learning. Sometimes, it's just like some of it isn't inevitable to lose, like obviously. But then there's parts that I think you really could keep traces of.
Yep. And that's what I want to talk about today, is how you can instill that childlike spirit back into your life again, regardless of what age you might be. And I'm going to tell you why as we kind of go through this. Okay. But again, there's a distinction here between being childlike and childish.
Yes.
We're not talking about being childish. As you grow older and your body matures and your mind matures and you gain more, not like that, that's important, right? That's wisdom that you're gaining throughout your life. So we're not talking about being childish, but we're talking about being childlike. So one of the first things, I'm going to use Pepper as an example through this because she's the most obvious, most recent example in my life of watching this little human being navigate through life. One of the first things that I notice about her that I want more of in me is that kids exhibit a unbelievable sense of humility. They just have humility. Children are completely awe-inspired by the world around them. And as we grow old, we tend to lose a lot of that sense of kind of wonder. And keeping the sense of humility that you had as a child, I think is incredibly important because it allows you to really be inspired by the action and the knowledge of the people around you. I mean, we've talked about this before, this idea that humility is key for curiosity.
Yeah.
You have to be humble in order to stay curious. The moment you think you've got it all figured out and you know everything there is to know about people, about life, about God, and you lose your curiosity. So humility leads to curiosity, and I think curiosity then leads to awe. Without curiosity, you're not going to have awe as you kind of navigate through life. And, how many times I think about this this happens to me more often than I want to admit. When you're in a conversation with somebody, and let's just pick a random example. They say something about a book, and you've never heard of the book. But they always follow it up, probably because they can read it on your face with, you've heard of that book, right? And you're like, oh, yeah.
Just please don't ask me any questions.
Right. You haven't heard of the book. You don't know anything about the book, but you don't want to look dumb in the midst of that conversation.
Yeah.
And so the conversation often kind of ends right there, where if you were just humble enough to say, I have no idea what you're talking about, tell me more.
Yeah.
They would probably go into telling you more about the background, how it's impacted them and all that. And humility, I think, is what allows us to ask questions about people and about life. You know this, Pepper has a phrase right now that she says 1,000 times a day. She says, what's that?
What's that? What's that?
What's that?
What's that? It's
Everything.
so animated.
Every page of every book,
What's
every
that?
scene in every cartoon, anything you pull out of a drawer, what's that? But she has a sense of humility where she doesn't feel like she has to have this inflated ego where you can't have questions. She questions everything. And that what's that before long is going to lead to another question, which is why.
Why? Yeah.
She's going to ask why about it. You know, if you have kids, you guys know this, right? They always ask questions. And I think it's not because they're dumb. They don't know it. They just have a sense of humility about them where they're absorbing. They're like a sponge.
Yeah. Kids don't know that they don't know it. So they don't even feel that they're, dumb per se. It's just that they keep asking questions because they're truly, genuinely, innately curious.
That's right. I think as adults, we would all be so much wiser if we just asked more questions.
That's good.
Ask more questions about people, about places, about things. And it just leads to, I think, awe-inspiring knowledge about stuff that you normally wouldn't know about.
Yeah. And like you think about it being like ask questions when I hear that, I think like to people and like things, but in your mind, I remember going through a season where I was like really, really curious, like in the healthiest way I could have been, where probably now I don't even have as much time to think that way. I need to get better at that. But I genuinely was asking myself questions all the time. Like, why does, that look like that? Or why did, this documentary, like, I don't even know about this person in this documentary. I don't care really about it, but I'm going to learn about it. Like, you just become so hungry once you start it because you realize like what an energizing thing that is and how maybe you have interest in things you didn't even know about.
For sure.
And there's people, and I've been in this boat 100 times where you're like, I don't have hobbies or I don't have a ton of interests. And often it's because in those seasons I'm not being curious.
Yeah.
I'm not like learning new things. I'm not putting myself in new situations. Yep. And when you do that, you discover things. You can never discover things that you love without, putting yourself in the middle of something that you're unknown.
Yep. So humility, that's the first kind of trait that, I took away. I'm reading this book. I forgot about this one. To get this in there, by Rick Rubin called The Creative Act. Do you know who Rick Rubin is?
Just because you've been reading this book.
Do you want to ask me a question now so that you can be curious?
What did Rick Rubin do?
Okay.
Do you even know?
Yes, Rick Rubin's a music producer. I actually made a list. This is going to blow you away, everything Rick Rubin has produced. He's produced the Beastie Boys. He's kind of known as the co-founder of Def Jam Records, right?
Okay.
So he's a big part of the hip hop music. But he is produced Beastie Boys, Run DMC, LL Cool J, Metallica, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Weezer, Johnny Cash.
Wow.
Johnny freaking Cash he produced.
It's crazy.
In 2007, Rubin was called the most important producer of the last 20 years by MTV.
Jeez. Okay.
So it's significant. And he just has kind of, I'm only like maybe a tenth in this book. It's a big book. And he's just talking about the act of creativity for artists, for everyone. He thinks everybody is creative, that everybody's an artist in the way that you live your life. But he had this quote in here that I highlighted and I put it in my notes because I love this. He said, to navigate our way through this immense world of data, we learn early in life to focus on information that appears essential or of particular interest and to tune out the rest. As artists, we seek to restore our childlike perception, a more innocent state of wonder and appreciation, not tethered to utility or survival. Mm-hmm. So it's like over time, the older you get, you kind of... you train your brain to scan only for things that are what you believe to be productive or useful for your survival, right? But a kid's not like that. They don't have all those filters.
Yeah, because their needs are met, so they just have this immense capacity to just dream and think.
All information is important to them. They want to know about everything. And so I think that's a beautiful thing. So that's that first trait that I think humility kind of leads to, that curiosity, to that awe, to asking questions.
Okay.
Second trait is they willingly trust. So adults sometimes we tend to lose faith and lose trust, sometimes for good reasons, right, over the course of our lifetime. And this often causes adults to just drift aimlessly through life. But kids trust. They probably trust too much. This is what makes them vulnerable. This is why as parents we kind of want to hover over them, because their trust is just, they'll trust anybody. I mean, Pepper right now.
Yeah.
She'll go to anybody.
Whoever.
Right? And so I think that what happens over time, because of experiences, because somebody cheated us, because somebody betrayed us, because somebody did us wrong or mistreated us, we start to view everybody like that, right? And so it's going to be hard for some of you to believe this because the media is constantly telling you otherwise. But there are people in this world who act with no ulterior motive and honestly just want to see humanity progress, right? There are people in this world who are really for you, right? There are people who, and I believe this. I believe the vast majority of people are doing their best. They really are. Yeah. And so every pastor is not after your money, and every politician is not corrupt, and every ex-spouse is not trying to take you down and ruin your life. Every teenager isn't rebellious. The list could go on and on and on.
Yeah, we categorize people. We put people in categories, and then if we've been hurt by that category, we assign that to them. Yeah,
you got hurt by a boss who mistreated you. That's terrible. I'm sorry that happened. It doesn't mean that every boss you have moving forward is going to treat you that way.
Or your friend lied to you. Now you can't be honest to any of your friends. You assign a label as soon as you get hurt just to defend your heart.
Yeah. And that, I think, costs us greatly in life, where kids don't do that. They trust. And even if you break that trust, they're pretty willing to give it to you again.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness, right? And I think, some people would say, well, as an adult, that characteristic is called being gullible. But I don't view it that way. No. I'm trying to think. I should have spent more time thinking about this. But there are very few instances in my life that I look back and I regret trusting somebody. Even if, in the long run, I got hurt. I think that the act and the practice of trusting people. Now, again, that doesn't mean that, if there's a pattern of someone breaking your trust, that's probably not a healthy relationship to be in. But for the most part, I've rarely regretted trusting someone. I have a tremendous amount of regret about not giving certain people a chance.
Yeah, I think another area that's easy to remove your trust is when someone else tells you not to trust this person.
Yeah.
In my experience, sometimes that's true. Other times it's that person's agenda because they don't want you to like that person. Yeah. Or you just never know what their experience is or what their perception is. I've had people in my life are like, oh, you won't like her. Don't, whatever. And then I meet that person, I'm like, she's great. But if you listen to the people sometimes, I don't know, I just think that's a category that we often oh, you said that? Okay, put them in that bucket. Oh, you said this about that politician? Okay, I'm going to put them in that bucket without really, understanding yourself.
Yep. And so it definitely impacts relationships. I also believe it impacts faith. I think as adults, we're always trying to explain, we're always trying to debate, we're always trying to rationalize, study, pick apart, and otherwise complicate our faith. I used to have this phrase I would say often, that religion seeks to complicate what Jesus made simple.
Yeah.
And up until I was probably 8, maybe 9 years old, my faith journey consisted of 2 truths from 2 different children's songs that I sung in Sunday school growing up. The first one was Jesus Loves Me. Mm-hmm. So I had that foundation of truth. I really believe Jesus loves me. The other one was He's got the whole world in His hands. Mm-hmm. Did you sing that one?
He's got the whole world. Yeah.
In His hands. He's got that, and that's all I knew. And looking back, that's really all I needed to know.
Yeah.
Jesus loves me, and He's got the whole world in His hands.
Good.
And if you just keep certain things simple and just trust and not overcomplicate it, not have to pull it apart dissect it. And there's times for that, right? But I think overall, we've lost an element of trusting in the goodness of people. And what you see on the nightly news or you read on the blogs, about these are not the people who are making the world move forward, right? And they don't represent the vast majority of people out there.
Yeah, that's good.
They just don't. All right.
Number
3rd trait that I love is that kids live in the moment. They are present. You ever watch a kid? They have no awareness of time whatsoever. And most of the fear and the anxiety that people have, I think about the clients that I coach. When we're talking about the fear, the anxiety, the things that seem huge and impossible in their life, almost all of those things are something that's way off in the future and not the result of something going on in that moment.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. So I think as adults, somewhere along the way, we unlearned how to be present. And so most adults live in what I call either hyper past or hyper future. If you live in a hyper past where you just can't move out of your past, you're going to live with guilt and remorse and shame and regret.
Yep.
If you live in hyper future, where you're not in the present, all you're doing is thinking about something. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this, then your life's going to be full of fear and anxiety. Right? And it's only in the present that we actually have all the things that we need to deal with that particular moment.
Right.
And kids have learned how to do that, right? And they're just so darn good at just being present.
Yeah. You told me the other day that my brother is someone
Yes.
that lives in the present really well. And he really is. And not until you said that did I realize that. I was like, dang, you're so right. And people love to be around him. And that is a big reason why, because when you're there in front of him, it's like, that's what matters.
Yep.
And what we're doing right now matters. And how can we actually make this moment even more fun or even more memorable? And he's really good at that. And so you and I have learned a lot. We haven't told him that yet.
I know.
Maybe he'll listen.
Well, I know Peyton Wilson listens to this podcast sometimes on YouTube. So shout out to Peyton Wilson. No, he had. I told you that the other day we were hanging out. I was like, he has really taught me a lot about just being in the moment. Don't worry about how this is going to impact next week or the next, just be in this moment. Let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy this conversation. Let's enjoy these people.
Create experiences.
Yes.
Let's spontaneously go on this trip. He's just so good at those things because he knows. We talked about this. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. We're not guaranteed next year. And so to be able to live in the moment is also just really a beautiful thing in that sense too. Just living your biggest life while you can.
Yeah. And I get that from Pepper. Watching her, she not a care in the world. It's because she's not living in the past or the future. She is in this particular moment. And the more moments that we can be in the moment, the more joy, the more life, the more intentionality I think that we'll have.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, 4th one. Ready?
Yep.
They know how to celebrate. It does not take much at all for a kid to feel like an absolute winner.
No.
Give me some examples of Pepper because they're hilarious.
Oh gosh, anything. I closed the door, clap for me. I ran fast, clap for me. I fell and stood up, clap for me. She is a huge celebrator of hers. Probably because we're sitting there yay, you did it. And she's learned that. But she does. She celebrates for herself pretty consistently.
Yeah, she didn't do this anymore, but for a long time, every step she took was a celebration. Just went nuts over it. Just pure joy on her face when she does something new, says a new word, and we understand it. She just celebrates big. And I think that when the going gets tough, you got to look for the small victories in life. And some of the best people I know that have accomplished the most in life are people who know how to celebrate. Not only for themselves, but they celebrate other people's wins.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to say, I think it's easier for me to celebrate other people. It is harder for me to celebrate myself. And kids, whether it's just, innate in them or not, it's not a selfish thing. It's just truly the best. And they just celebrate them.
Yeah.
It's I won that game. I did this. I got an A on my test. and it is a very I-centric thing, but that's very, very natural and normal for kids. When you grow up, you learn, don't be so self-centered. Don't be so I-centric. Don't be so. And so, in a beautiful way, we do kind of look at other people and celebrate them, hopefully. But we lose our ability to celebrate ourselves And I think this culture has really re-enhanced that, and it's become more of a thing again to prioritize yourself and celebrate yourself and self-care and all of that. But I do think it's hard for us to remember and genuinely feel like a celebration of ourselves.
Yeah. I know plenty of people who've accomplished a lot in life and they never stop to celebrate, and there's a joy missing from their accomplishments. And they actually believe they're only as good as whatever their next accomplishment is going to be.
Yeah.
And they don't stop to just kind of take it in, breathe it in, be grateful that for whatever reason they had a victory in some particular area of their life, in their relationship or in their work or with their kids. And I feel like you do a lot better at this than I do. And I've learned a lot from you about stopping and celebrating, like, hey, that was a big win. That was a big phone call. That was whatever. And so I'm really glad you've broadened my heart in that area.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
Very good.
So that's it. Those are the 4 traits. I did make a quick list of some like practical things you can do if you want to cultivate the heart of a child.
Okay, quick list.
To be childlike. It's super fast. Here they are. Number 1, read a book that you loved as a kid. Do you have a favorite book from when you were a kid?
Yeah.
What is it?
I have a couple. Kissing Hands, I loved. The Giving Tree, I love. I actually read The Giving Tree about a year ago.
There you go. So read a book you loved as a kid. Number 2, figure out how something works. Whatever it is. Like, again, get that from Pepper. She wants to know how everything works.
Okay.
Do something fun. Just like make a Lego village. Pull out a coloring book. You do that sometimes where you color, sketch.
I draw a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great. Number 4, explore.
Like
Go to
outside?
Anywhere. Go
Anything.
to a new city. Go to a new place in a city you live that you've never been. But I think exploring kind of opens up your mind. It makes you curious, right?
Yep.
Number 5 was assume that you'll be really good at something. Like
Fake it
piano,
till you make it.
rock climbing, organizing a club. I don't know what it is, but like that's what kids do. They just assume they're going to be really good at something.
I believe in that. I think that's half of the things I try. I'm like, I'm going to pretend like this is going to be amazing until it is.
Yep. Number 6, don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not Pepper? You can say no 1,000 times. When she gets her mind set on something, she's going to do it.
She'll find another way,
Yeah.
which I think as an adult is the best way to do it. Not just like, okay, I'm going to do it the same way again. It's like you have to find another way to ask that question or find a different way to present that problem.
Yep.
It's good.
And the 7th one, very similar to the last one, is ignore something someone says if it limits you.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
I think kids are really good at that. Just not taking it internally, not taking it so personal, but just kind of ignoring you if it doesn't fit whatever it is that they want to think
Until
in that
they're
moment.
like 13 and have hormones and it makes them really sad.
Yeah. Well, she's
No,
not
that's
13
good.
yet.
That's really good. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, let's all live like a little toddler with better coordination.
It's different between childlike and
Oh, I
childish.
know. Oh, no. I know. I'm not saying that sarcastically.
But
I think that's awesome.
I think most of us as adults would be better off if we lived a little more
I
childlike.
totally agree. That's so good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I hope that was helpful for you guys. I need to go back through and actually write some of those down because I'm not good at all of those things. But I hope you guys have had a great week. We took a little break, but we are back in the saddle and we'll be back next week. And Pete, that was another
Good talk.